Aurelia and Dante were oil and water, the two most brilliant, competitive people in their office who despised each other. Their rivalry was a cold war fought over coffee and client pitches. But one accidental kiss changes everything, turning hate into uncontrollable fire. Aurelia considered Dante Vance to be the single biggest anxiety trigger in her professional life. He was everything she worked hard to achieve. Effortlessly brilliant, naturally charming, and possessed a maddening ease that made her feel perpetually behind. Their desks faced each other in the high-pressure marketing firm, turning their competition into a silent, grinding, daily war. To Dante, Aurelia wasn't just a rival. She was a terrifying, organized genius who exposed his own chaotic struggle to remain at the top. He saw her perfection, and it fueled his desperate need to win. Their communication was a performance of strained, icy professionalism, defined entirely by razor-sharp emails. The air between them was thick, charged with a volatile mix of professional tension and deep, unspoken respect they fought fiercely to suppress. Every project was a battlefield, fueled not by personal malice, but by the desperate, clawing fear of losing to the one person who could truly push them to their limit. Aurelia knew Dante's stormy gray eyes and sharp jawline were undeniably attractive, but she rationalized his moody arrogance as the defense she needed against the dangerous pull she felt. She was obsessed with winning the upcoming, pitch-perfect competition, believing the promotion was the only true validation that proved her worth beyond his irritating, magnetic presence. The pitch-perfect competition was becoming a psychological pressure cooker, and Aurelia was suffocating under the stress. Her strategy notebook, her meticulously planned playbook containing everything, was her anchor. One afternoon, she returned to her desk and felt a sick rush of panic. The notebook was gone. She immediately looked up and saw Dante, leaning back in his chair with a small, unsettling smirk, a performance she knew he used when he was nervous. "Lose something crucial, Aurelia?" he drawled, the mock concern infuriating. She cornered him instantly by the water cooler, her voice tight with fury and a genuine fear of professional sabotage. "If you touched my notes, Dante, I will ensure the board knows exactly what a desperate, contemptible snake you are. You'll lose your career." His smirk dissolved instantly, replaced by an oddly intense, deeply wounded look. "You truly believe I jeopardize everything just to prove I'm better? That's your genuine assessment of my character." The raw accusation struck her hard. His unexpected vulnerability was confusing. As he turned to walk away, she saw a flash of red, her favorite scarf, the one she'd used to cover her screen, clumsily jammed in the drawer of his desk. It was such a small, clumsy act. Was he trying to sabotage her? Or was it a pathetic, human attempt to grasp at her attention, afraid he couldn't beat her fairly? Before she could demand an explanation for his strange vulnerability, the main office lights flickered violently, plunging the vast floor into sudden, terrifying darkness, and setting the stage for the clumsy, unavoidable accident that would detonate their carefully constructed emotional walls. The blackout was immediate and total. Chaos erupted instantly across the floor. Aurelia was frozen near Dante's desk, reeling from the mystery of the scarf and the raw shock of his hurt face. A panicked junior analyst, sprinting blindly down the aisle, slammed hard into Aurelia from behind. She gasped, stumbling sideways, her momentum sending her careening off balance and into the thick darkness. She threw her hand out wildly, desperately grasping for stability, and her palm slammed hard against Dante's chest. He reacted instantly, dropping his files with a frustrated curse to catch her. He pulled her in hard, bracing her firm body against his to prevent the fall. Their bodies collided with a violent, non-negotiable force. For a split second, she was safe, pressed against his startled body, inhaling the clean, expensive scent of his cologne. Then, the clumsy, unavoidable truth hit. Their faces smashed together. It was a rough, jarring collision, a painful, awkward impact. But the moment their lips connected, the shock was instantly and violently overpowered by a cataclysmic shockwave of raw, electrical energy. Dante's strong grip tightened instantly, transforming the saving embrace into a fierce, controlling hold. The rivalry, the fear, the professional distance. It all dissolved into the powerful, unexpected fire ignited by their accidental kiss, leaving them breathless in the sudden, silent dark. The physical contact lasted only seconds, but it was enough to annihilate years of careful emotional defense. Dante, the self-proclaimed master of control, felt a sudden, powerful surge of desire. A wild, uncontrolled reaction that shook him to his core, exposing his absolute vulnerability. His hands, still locked around Aurelia's waist, instinctively tightened, turning the accidental collision into a desperate, seeking kiss that demanded a response. Aurelia was equally stunned, her body completely paralyzed by the raw, magnetic force pulling her to him. The accidental touch had become something urgent, necessary, something that felt like a spiritual hunger she had unknowingly carried for years. In the heavy, shadowed silence of the blackout, their shared breathing was ragged and loud. Dante pulled back just slightly, his stormy gray eyes wide, dark, and utterly lost in the dim light, studying her face with an intensity that burned away all their manufactured history. He looked genuinely terrified by his own reaction, utterly human in his loss of control. "What in the hell?" he managed, his voice a low, rough whisper that confessed his complete state of shock. Aurelia couldn't form a single coherent thought. The only sound was the frantic pounding of her heart against his chest. This fierce, blinding chemistry was terrifying precisely because it was so powerful and so real. They were no longer rivals. They were two vulnerable people consumed by a primal, irresistible attraction that now held their explosive secret. When the emergency generators finally kicked on, flooding the office with harsh, flickering light, Aurelia and Dante sprang apart as if physically burned. The intense moment of raw passion vanished, immediately replaced by overwhelming, painful awkwardness. Aurelia's lips were tingling and bruised, and Dante looked like a man utterly defeated, his breathing still ragged. The rivalry hadn't returned, but a profound, uncomfortable awareness had taken its place. A heavy, constant pressure that defined their every move. Dante cleared his throat awkwardly, adjusting his tie with visibly shaking hands, desperately trying to restore the professional order. "That was highly regrettable and strictly an accident," he managed, his voice stiff and completely professional, desperately trying to re-establish control. Aurelia felt a desperate urge to flee, but she stood her ground, demanding control. "Agreed. It was an accident, and it absolutely won't be mentioned again." But the agreement was a desperate, flimsy lie. They both knew the accidental kiss was the most real thing that had ever happened between them. Their workspaces now felt terrifyingly small. When Dante quietly handed her the missing notebook, claiming, "I found it tucked behind the server rack," with a deep, visible blush of shame that spoke volumes of his unprofessional human jealousy, the tension was unbearable. His hand brushed hers, and the electric jolt was immediate and impossible to dismiss. The Cold War was officially over, replaced by a terrifying, fragile truce built on the foundation of fierce, unwanted desire that would make all future collaboration agonizing and dangerous. The mandatory collaboration on the pitch-perfect presentation forced Aurelia and Dante into close, unavoidable proximity. Their dynamic had shifted completely, moving past mere rivalry into a shared, silent hypervigilance regarding the kiss. Dante, who typically scoffed at her meticulous planning, was now unervingly focused on her, his commentary sharp but strangely supportive, offering brilliant insights that genuinely elevated her work. She found herself relying on his moody brilliance, finally recognizing that their combined, unified talent was truly an unstoppable force. One evening, working late into the night, Aurelia realized she was staring at the small, distracting scar above his eyebrow. A tiny human imperfection that made him look vulnerable, not arrogant. Dante looked up, catching her gaze, and the professional silence fractured completely. "Don't pretend you haven't been thinking about it all week," he stated, his voice low and firm. Not a question, but a raw, deeply human demand for honesty. His eyes held that same wild, lost look from the blackout. He didn't want to discuss the technical accident. He desperately wanted to acknowledge the emotional fire. Aurelia felt her face heat up. She wanted to deny it, but the lie was simply impossible. She just closed the laptop with a decisive snap. "The pitch comes first," she whispered. He gave a slight, acknowledging nod, but his gaze remained locked on hers for several agonizing seconds. A silent promise that their professional truce was temporary. The presentation was the immediate goal, but the true stakes were deeply personal, hidden just beneath the surface of their desperate alliance. The final presentation day arrived, thick with corporate pressure. Aurelia felt the familiar, cold tightening of professional anxiety, a human vulnerability Dante had never seen her exhibit. Unexpectedly, he leaned close to her, his voice a low, solid anchor in the storm. "You're going to crush them, Aurelia. You are the absolute best here. Even better than me," he whispered, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering sincerity. The raw kindness and stunning admission of her superiority was a shock, instantly stripping away years of competitive resentment. She looked at him, surprised by the sudden, overwhelming warmth of his praise. "Thank you. You too. You're brilliant," she responded, her voice barely a breath. He scoffed softly, shaking his head with a vulnerable smile. "Brilliance is easy. I just wish I'd stopped seeing you as the enemy sooner." The confession was quiet, simple, and utterly disarming. It laid bare the truth. Their rivalry had been a ridiculous, elaborate defense mechanism, a cover for an attraction they were too terrified to manage. He confessed the whole pathetic, human truth about the missing notes. "I only took them and left my scarf as a clumsy, stupid gesture to get your attention, afraid you were going to beat me without giving me a single glance." The raw honesty instantly broke the final wall of her doubt. Before the client walked in, Aurelia reached out and briefly touched his hand, a silent acknowledgement of their shared truth and the absolute end of their Cold War. The energy in the room shifted instantly from professional anxiety to a fierce, unified partnership built on raw, mutual vulnerability. The pitch-perfect presentation was an absolute, undisputed triumph. A seamless, dazzling blend of Aurelia's meticulous planning and Dante's intuitive flair. They won the multimillion-dollar account easily, securing the firm's future and guaranteeing both their promotions. The executive team immediately rushed them to Dante's corner office to celebrate. The door finally clicked shut, leaving them gloriously alone in the vast, triumphant space. Dante leaned back against his immense mahogany desk, looking at Aurelia, his eyes dark with unbridled, honest hunger. "We did it," he murmured, his voice thick with a meaning that had nothing to do with the client win. Aurelia moved toward him, the wild exhilaration of the victory merging seamlessly with the overwhelming, long-suppressed desire for this man. There was no need for words, no need to pretend the accidental kiss was just a mistake. The victory had stripped away the last layer of their professional armor, and the truth of their passion was the only thing left standing. Dante reached out, pulling her close, the movement confident and absolute. The kiss this time was intentional, powerful, and utterly consuming. A desperate, celebratory convergence of two rivals finally admitting their true, terrified feelings. It was the moment their professional success transformed instantly into personal, unavoidable fate, securing a bond that could never be broken. The intimacy that followed in the seclusion of the corner office was an honest, explosive surrender, fueled by years of pent-up animosity, intense professional tension, and overwhelming, unwanted desire. They moved across the room, shedding clothes in a frantic rush, driven by the desperate need to finally connect the two brilliant minds that fought so fiercely with the two bodies that yearned so deeply. Dante was dominant and demanding, but his touch, for Aurelia, was a powerful revelation. Fierce, possessive, and deeply reassuring in its honesty. He claimed her not with arrogance, but with the profound devotion of a vulnerable man who realized he had secretly loved his rival all along. Every touch he gave was an apology for the manufactured hatred, and every kiss was a confirmation of the uncontrollable chemistry ignited by that accidental moment. Aurelia gave herself over completely, letting the rivalry, the ambition, and the professional boundaries dissolve entirely into the beautiful, desperate reality of their connection. In the quiet, exhausted aftermath, wrapped only in the scent of champagne and expensive leather, they lay intertwined on the soft office rug. Dante held her tightly, burying his face in her hair. "I hated you because I was terrified of how much I wanted you," he confessed, the simple, honest truth confirming their irreversible choice. The accidental kiss had been the catalyst. The intimacy in the corner office was the irreversible action, securing a future neither had planned, but both desperately desired. The promotion was finalized the following morning, but the real, lasting change was their relationship. The intense rivalry was entirely dead, replaced by a fierce, unbreakable collaborative partnership that made them absolutely unstoppable at the firm. They continued to challenge each other, but now it was driven by love, respect, and mutual admiration, not contempt. Aurelia still teased Dante for stealing her coffee, and he still occasionally ruffled her papers, but the animosity was now a form of affectionate, playful banter. A year later, they stood together on that same rooftop, celebrating their anniversary. Not just of the client win, but of the day Dante admitted he loved her more than he hated her. Dante pulled a small, velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple platinum band, beautifully etched with the precise coordinates of the spot where they first accidentally kissed during the blackout. "I was a miserable jerk," Dante admitted, kissing her hand softly. "But you were worth the humiliation. Be my partner forever, Aurelia, in business and in everything else." Aurelia laughed, tears welling up in her eyes. "You lost all control over a clumsy mistake, Dante. I wouldn't have it any other way." She slipped the ring onto her finger. Their fierce rivalry beautifully transformed into an unbreakable bond of honest, powerful love. They were finally a unified force, two brilliant minds and hearts, proving that sometimes the only way to stop a war is with a disastrous accidental kiss. Which part of their rivalry to lovers' journey shocked you the most? The accidental kiss, or Dante's confession about the missing notes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want more enemies to lovers stories and unforgettable chemistry, please like this video and subscribe for more videos like this.